Grace had never been the loud type. At just 10, she carried the quiet weight of someone who observed more than she spoke. While other children danced in the rain or shouted over skipping ropes, Grace would sit by the window with her crayons, drawing stories only she understood. Her mother, a night shift nurse in a bustling Enugu clinic, did her best to make life feel warm. But the house always felt too big, too quiet, especially on birthdays. This year, there was no cake, no party. Just a hurried kiss on the forehead and a promise, "I'll bring you something special." When her mother returned that evening, she carried a small plastic bag and tired eyes. "A man by the roadside said it brings comfort to lonely children," she explained. Grace opened it slowly. A teddy bear, faded brown, with one button eye and a second mismatched one sewn in. A rough patch sat, stitched on its chest in red thread. And its smile, crooked, stitched with black yarn, as if someone had forced it to grin. "It's perfect," Grace whispered. She hugged it close, her small arms squeezing its soft belly. She named it Mr. MSO on the spot, declaring, "He talks to me, but only in my heart." Her mother chuckled, relieved. "Then he's a good friend." That night, as the rain tapped gently against the windows, Grace didn't draw. She lay curled under her blanket, whispering to the bear. The smile stitched on Mr. MSO's face seemed to widen under the moonlight, and if anyone had been watching closely, they might have noticed that its button eyes didn't just stare into the dark. They watched her. At first, it was innocent. Grace would whisper to Mr. MSO during bedtime, giggling softly beneath her covers. Her mother, exhausted after long shifts at the clinic, thought nothing of it. Children talked to toys all the time. Imaginary friends were part of growing up, right? But then, the whispers started answering back. Not loud, never shouting, but a low murmur, like two people holding a secret conversation behind a curtain. One night, while passing Grace's door, her mother paused. She leaned in. "Why should I?" Grace asked in a hushed tone. A pause, then a deeper whisper, unmistakably not hers, slithered through the silence. Her mother's chest tightened. She pushed the door open, and there was Grace, fast asleep, clutching Mr. MSO under her chin. Nothing seemed wrong. The next morning, Grace's drawings changed. No more houses and butterflies. Instead, jagged sketches of her room burning. A black figure with button eyes standing behind her mother. One image showed her mother screaming, red crayon flames licking her dress, while Grace stood smiling with the teddy in hand. Her mother asked gently, "Why would you draw this, Grace?" Grace stared blankly at the paper. "Mr. MSO says I should know what's coming." Her tone was flat, detached. Days passed, and her once affectionate hugs became fewer. She no longer called out for her mother in the night. She started speaking in fragmented sentences, and sometimes she'd simply stand in the hallway, watching. Silent. "You shouldn't touch me when I'm with him," she said one afternoon, jerking away from her mother's embrace. "With who?" "Mr. MSO says I don't need anyone else." The bear sat on her bed, propped up against a pillow, its button eyes seeming to shine darker now. Its stitched smile, wider, as if it was feeding off something. And Grace? She was changing. Quickly. It began with the lights. They flickered in quiet waves, humming like a warning. First, it was the hallway bulb, blinking every evening around 9 p.m., then going dead for hours before sparking back to life. Then the TV began switching on by itself, always to static even when unplugged. The fan in Grace's room groaned like something inside it was struggling to breathe. The microwave beeped at odd hours, its screen flashing unreadable symbols. Grace's mother blamed faulty wiring until the shadows started moving. Not in the normal way. These ones stretched wrong, dragging too long across the floor, bending toward light instead of away from it. More than once, she saw her own reflection in the mirror pause a second too long after she'd walked away. The bathroom mirror fogged up even when no one had showered, strange handprints forming on the glass. Every night, the disturbances grew bolder. At exactly 3 a.m., knocks would sound, 3 soft, deliberate taps on the bedroom door. Grace's mother would sit up in panic, sweating, heart racing. But when she opened it, no one would be there. Just silence, and the sound of something dragging across the tiles. One night, she caught Grace standing in the middle of the living room, barefoot and swaying gently. "Grace," she whispered. The child didn't respond. Her eyes were open but unfocused, her mouth moving, mumbling sounds that didn't belong to any language her mother had ever heard. Later, when Mama Amaka heard a voice recording, she whispered in fear, "That's not English. That's Igbo, but ancient. The kind only spirit mediums used long ago." Worst of all was the teddy bear. No matter where it was left, by morning it had moved. From Grace's bed to the kitchen table, from the chair to the wardrobe. One day, it sat on the windowsill, facing outside, as though watching something approach. Grace never admitted touching it. Neither did her mother. But each morning, its grin seemed just a little wider. And the house no longer felt like home. It felt like something else was living there too, something that didn't sleep. Something that had finally made room. The decision to leave the city wasn't easy, but by the 3rd week, Grace's mother could no longer deny what was happening in their home. Appliances breaking, shadows shifting, Grace's drawings turning blood red. Something was unraveling, and it wasn't just her daughter's mind. So, one Friday morning, they packed a small bag and drove to Amakwe village. The moment they crossed the narrow, palm-lined path into the compound, Grace became stiff, unusually silent. Waiting by the shrine at the back of the house was Mama Amaka, Grace's grandmother, a respected seer with eyes that always seemed to look beyond the flesh. She stood barefoot, her white wrapper tied tight, red beads circling both wrists. She didn't smile when she saw them. The moment Mama Amaka's eyes landed on the teddy bear clutched in Grace's arms, she hissed low and turned her back. "You brought death into my house," she said. "Why would you allow this thing follow a child?" Grace's mother explained everything in a shaky voice. Mama Amaka listened, then motioned for them to sit. "This is no ordinary toy," she said, her voice grave. "It carries an Ikaru, a restless spirit cursed and bound in cloth. The soul belongs to a woman named Obiageli, wronged, betrayed, and murdered by those who feared her power. They didn't just kill her. They sealed her soul inside a doll. And that doll has passed from hand to hand for decades." She pointed at the bear. "That is her now." Grace sat rigid, eyes glazed over. "We have to burn it," Mama Amaka said firmly. "Now, before she takes root." They built a small fire in the clearing behind the compound. Mama Amaka began chanting as she reached for the teddy. That's when Grace screamed. It wasn't the scream of a frightened child. It was shrill, guttural, almost inhuman. Her small body convulsed, eyes rolling back until only the whites showed. "She's mine," she cried in 2 voices, one Grace's, soft and panicked, the other deeper, ancient, trembling with rage. She promised. Then Grace collapsed, limbs twitching, the bear falling from her arms like dead weight. The fire flickered wildly. Mama Amaka took a cautious step back. "She's fighting to stay," she muttered. "And she's not ready to go." The flames from the fire licked the sky, but the teddy bear would not burn. It merely sizzled, refusing to blacken, refusing to scream. Mama Amaka stared into the fire, her voice low, telling the story that had long been buried beneath shame and silence. Her name was Obiageli, she said, her eyes fixed. In the 1970s, she lived in Diabo, not far from here. A widow, mid-30s, beautiful, alone, too smart for the men, too confident for the women. And when the village chief's daughter died unexpectedly, they blamed her. Grace's mother sat frozen, her daughter unconscious beside her. The wind seemed to still. They said she bewitched the girl out of jealousy. There was no proof. But fear never needs proof. The chief summoned a priest Odogwu, a man who worshipped his own power more than any god. Mama Amaka's lips tightened. He didn't just accuse her. He performed a dark rite, one forbidden. He bound Obiageli's soul into a handmade wooden doll. Her screams were said to echo for 3 days from the shrine. And then, silence. She paused. That doll disappeared. But misfortune followed. Fires. Children lost to fever. Homes split by madness. Every household it entered crumbled. Over the years, the doll changed hands, faces, and shapes. Wood rotted. Cloth replaced it. Buttons were sewn. Names were changed. But the curse remained intact. The doll became a bear. The final version was cleaned, dressed, and sold in the city as a second-hand toy. And Grace, unknowingly, gave it a name, Mr. MSO. There was one boy, Mama Amaka whispered, who survived having the doll. He lives in a care facility now. His mind is gone. She fished out a photograph, an old one. A boy crouched in a corner, whispering to himself. Written on the back, in shaky ink, were the words, "It's watching. It remembers. It always comes back." Grace stirred then, her lips twitching into a faint smile. And in the distance, from inside the shut house, a voice echoed softly. A child's voice. A girl's voice. I didn't ask for this, but I won't be forgotten. It started with pronouns. "I don't want to go," Grace would say one day. "We hate it when you do that," she said the next. Her mother tried to correct her gently. "You mean you, Grace. Just you." But Grace would only blink once slowly and reply, "No, we mean what we said." From that moment, her presence changed. Her eyes, once wide and expressive, now seemed layered. One moment, sorrow clung to her lashes like morning dew. The next, fire danced beneath them. Sadness and rage, like two ghosts staring from the same window. Her smiles came too fast, her silences too deep. Then came the incident at school. A classmate had reached for Mr. MSO, teasing her with childish cruelty. "It's just a raggedy old bear," the boy had laughed. Grace didn't laugh. She didn't shout. She lunged. By the time teachers pulled her off, the boy had scratch marks down his face, and Grace's lips were bleeding from where she had bitten her own mouth. Her explanation? "He touched what isn't his. We warned him." That night, her mother couldn't sleep. She tossed beneath her wrapper, haunted by a dream of thick smoke, of a thatch roof burning above her head. Grace stood at the center of it, unharmed, humming a tune. A melody Mama Amaka later said was a war dirge sung by women who buried their children during the civil unrest of the 70s. At 2 a.m., her mother jolted awake, sweating. And there, at the foot of her bed, stood Grace. Still, watching, not blinking. "Grace," she whispered, her throat dry. Grace tilted her head, the same way Mr. MSO did when leaned against a wall. Then she whispered, "We wanted to see if you were still breathing." Her mother's blood ran cold. Grace turned and walked away, humming that same war song into the shadows. And somewhere in the house, the teddy bear shifted on its own, rolling upright, its stitched smile pointed straight at the door. The wind at the crossroads howled like it knew what was coming. Grace's mother clutched the teddy bear wrapped in old cloth, her hands trembling. The ground was dry, dust curling around her ankles as she dropped the bundle beneath the rusted signpost where 3 roads met. Mama Amaka had warned her, if it must burn where spirits walk in circles. She struck a match, heart pounding. Then a scream split the night. "You'll burn before I do." Grace. She came running barefoot, eyes wide and blackened like ink had swallowed the whites. Her voice cracked with fury and something else. Something not her own. Her hands stretched toward the bundle just as the match touched cloth. The teddy bear exploded into black flame. No fuel. No oil. Just fire, roaring up like it had waited centuries to be fed. The heat seared the air, and from inside the flames came a cry. A woman's cry. Twisted, agonized. Grace convulsed, clutching her chest, eyes rolled back. Her mouth opened unnaturally wide. From it poured a voice too old for her frame. They lied. I was never the witch. Then, Mama Amaka, her mother, screamed. And she was there. The old seer stepped from the shadows, beads rattling, wrapper flapping like wings. She raised both hands and began to chant, her voice weaving through time and language. The fire hissed. Grace screamed. The wind died. The flames dimmed. Grace's body went limp and collapsed into her mother's arms. The teddy, now a heap of black ash, crumbled to dust at their feet. Silence returned to the crossroads, but something in the air still listened, still watched, as if a story long forgotten had just taken a breath and wasn't done yet. For the first time in weeks, the house felt normal. Grace smiled again. Her laughter no longer carried that echo. She played, ate, even asked to go back to school. Her mother dared to hope. The bear was gone, burned, ashes swallowed by the earth. Then one quiet evening, as the sun spilled soft gold through the window, Grace approached her mother with a folded paper in her small hands. I drew us, she said cheerfully. Her mother smiled, but as she unfolded the sheet, her breath caught. The drawing showed 3 figures, Grace, her mother, and in the far corner, Mr. MSO. Smiling, her mother tried to laugh it off. Just a memory, she whispered to herself. That night, around 2 a.m., laughter floated from the kitchen. Soft, ragged, not Grace's. She tiptoed in, heart thudding. Grace lay asleep on the couch, peaceful. But there, on the kitchen chair, was the teddy bear. Clean, whole, its fur somehow newer than before. The patch on its chest now curved, stitched into a perfect, hollow smile. Then it turned slightly and whispered, clear as day, we're not finished. To be continued. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when part 2 drops. You won't want to miss what happens next.